Alright, so now that we have our user form inserted, we are going to start inserting some controls so that users can insert data into the user form, and then later we will talk about how we can pass that data into the spreadsheet itself. So the first control that we are going to add is a text box. And text boxes allow users to type within the text box, and then we can use that value that they inserted and pass it to our spreadsheet. So let's create a text box for the item number column. So inside of this toolbox within our VB editor, we can insert this text box control. And if you don't see this toolbox, you can come up to the toolbar and click this toolbox icon. So if we give this a click, the toolbox goes away, give it another click, and the toolbox reappears. So let's select the text box control and click and drag to insert our text box. And as we start inserting these controls, we will be naming each control so it's easier to refer to these controls within our VBA code. So with the text box selected, we can come down to the Properties window and change text box 1 to item TB, which is short for text box. Alright, so now that we gave this text box a name, we need a way to help guide users what to insert into this text box. Well, this text box is going to be used to insert an item number. So we can add a label to help direct the users. So if we click back inside our user form, and the label control is this A icon right here. So we can give this a click, and click and drag. And if we click inside this label, we can change the caption of what this label says. So instead of label 1, we can type in item number. And the font is a little bit small inside this label, but we can change this in the Properties window. So with this label selected, we can come down to Properties and change the font property to increase the font to 11. Click OK. And to make this label box fit automatically to the size of your text inside of this label, we can come down to the Properties window and give the Autosize property a double click. So our label automatically adjusts to the size of the text. And we can rearrange these controls by just clicking and dragging the controls around. Alright, well I think that looks good. And the next control that we want to add is the type column. So the first thing that we can do is create our label. Well, instead of starting a whole new label from scratch, we can just select our item number label and hold down Control or Command on your keyboard and click and drag this label to create a copy. And then let's change the caption of this label to type. And we can just resize this and then double click Autosize twice to resize the label box. Now instead of a text box, there are only going to be two different types of items, either type 1 or type 2. So this would be a good opportunity to use option buttons, so the user can choose either type 1 or type 2. So we can select our user form, and then click this target symbol for our option button control, and click and drag to insert the control. And let's rename this option button to type 1 OB for option button. And then change the caption to type 1. And then we can auto-size. And then from here, all we have to do is create a copy of this option button. So we can hold Control or Command on our keyboard and click and drag this option button. And let's rename this to type 2 OB. And then change the caption to type 2. And then I'm going to move things around so everything lines up properly. And that looks good. Now for the size column, we will have multiple sizes to choose from. So this would be a good time to use a combo box. And you can think of a combo box as a drop-down list like we created with data validation. So let's come over to our toolbox and select combo box. Click and drag. And you can see that it has a drop-down arrow that we can select to view a list of items within this combo box. And we can change this name to size CBB for combo box. And then we need to make another label, control drag, change the caption to size. And for the color column, we will have multiple options to choose from as well. So we can just create another copy of this combo box. But first, let's select our user form and click and drag this endpoint to give us more room. So we can select our combo box, and this time I'm going to hold down Control and select size as well. Now if we use Control drag, it will copy both the label and the combo box. And let's change the name of this combo box to color CBB, and then change the label to make it say color. Adjust the size, and there we go. I'm going to move these up a little bit so it's evenly spread out. And then for the price column, we want the users to be able to input any price that they want. So here we are going to use another text box. So we can just come up to our first text box and control click our label as well. Then control drag and change the text box name to price TB, and then change the caption for our label to price. And the last control that we need to add are command buttons. So after the user gets done filling out all these details for an item, we need them to be able to click a button to add this item to our worksheet and a cancel button to exit out of the user form. So within our toolbox, we can select command button. And then we can click and drag. And we can change the name of this button to add CB for command button and change the caption to add. And also let's increase the font size to 11. And then we can create a copy of this button by pressing Control and drag. And let's name this button Cancel CB and change the caption to Cancel. Also, you can select multiple controls within your user form by either clicking Control on your keyboard and then selecting each control, or you can click and drag over the controls that you want to select. And now you are able to move these controls around or change the properties of them. So I'm going to move these command buttons down a little bit. And now I think we put together a pretty good looking user form that's very descriptive and easy to follow. We can click this play button to see what the user form looks like. So within our user form, in our text box, we can start typing the text that we want, select the option buttons, click the drop downs, even though there are no items yet, and then we can click add and cancel. But notice how none of these controls do anything yet. So in the next few lectures, we will start adding code to these controls to execute tasks. But before we move on, really quickly, let's change the font size of these controls because this text is a little bit small. So we can exit out of our form, and we can select our text box, hold down Control, select both combo boxes and our other text box, come down to the font property, and we can increase the size to 10. Alright, so now we are ready to move forward with this user form.